Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and in this video we're going to dive into technical analysis with VeChain. As we get into the video, if you find it useful and informative, then do go ahead and hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you're new, subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications and you will not miss another VeChain update. Right, with all that said, done and out of the way, let's jump on down into the charts and start taking a look at what's been going on most recently with VeChain. Okay guys, so here we are. This is VeChain to the USDT weekly chart. Binance is the data source. Now, there's some interesting moves that have been happening with VeChain. I've been talking about potential pullbacks and corrections that are due on many altcoins. VeChain is exactly the same. We have to prepare for what is to come in the next little while. It might be a week from now, but obviously it is something that we are seeing in the charts, and it's important that I do make everyone aware that things do not move up in straight lines forever. They do have to have some form of correction. This is exactly what you saw with the fourth wave correction when Bitcoin went down to those low areas of 28k. This is a correction, and we're looking for something similar to happen soon to allow us to continue the growth to the upside. Obviously, just less severe than what we've seen previously. Now, in the case of VeChain here, I do want to kind of just point out that we have seen significant growth. I know a lot of people in the space, specifically the haters, like to call out that VeChain does nothing. It just goes sideways. When in the actual facts, since March of 2020 through to the April highs, we actually saw 18,000% in gains. Show me a bank that will give you that. Now, obviously, as we see here, the fourth wave has been quite severe. We actually had a major kind of pullback down here to these kind of low areas. This was the accumulation zone, and we started to see this correction to the upside. The problem that you have with this is ultimately what we're looking for is a short-term correction or sideways trade to allow us to correct a few things. On this weekly chart, we can see a significant push with that stochastic relative strength index now, right? Moving all the way up to this higher area here of around 64 on the chart. Now, obviously, we take a look at some similarities between what we're seeing right now and what actually happened over at the start of the third wave, right? And we can see that we were oversold on our stochastic relative strength index in the same way that we were oversold during this fourth wave correction. And we started to see significant pushes right here and here, right? We can see these, they're very much the same. But what happened was we got to a point where we started trading sideways and we had this correction right here. Okay, this is what we're looking for with VeChain right now, right? We're looking to find this top area here. And right now we're starting a fresh week where we are. This could be the opportunity to see us potentially wick up a little bit, but actually just not do too much in the way of discovery, go sideways, have the correction, and then continue the growth to the upside. This correction right here was absolutely key for VeChain. Obviously, we pushed right the way up into this overbought area. The correction was required to allow us to start this momentum drop. This actually kind of allowed this area here of sideways trading, right? We had another push to the upside and then we lost more momentum just here. And this allowed that deeper correction. Now, this particular kind of correction was down to what was going on with Bitcoin and basically the market following Bitcoin right there. So right now, we obviously have to acknowledge that this is not sustainable in the same way that this was not sustainable. This is more than likely going to go up into this overbought area, but at some point we are going to have that correction, right? And I know a lot of people will be calling it a bear market. Oh, that was it. That's the bull run over with, etc. In the same way of what we had seen over here with this correction, right? It's the bear market now, right? What are you calling it a bull market for? All that kind of nonsense that we saw in the comments, right? This was a correction wave, and what we're looking for is a correction wave within our fifth wave, right? Because ultimately there's waves within waves within waves. I said this 100 times over, and what we're looking for is a correction wave inside our fifth wave as we push the price higher. It does not move in straight lines. Nothing does. So we have to acknowledge that. And on this weekly chart, it's very, very clear and easy to see, and hopefully you guys can follow along with that. Now, as we drop down into our daily, this is where things really get interesting in terms of that stochastic. Obviously, it is overbought. It's at 100. 100 is the maximum level that a stochastic relative strength index can get into. So it's incredibly overbought in the same way that things like 𝗕𝗄𝗪 1 are, XRP, ADA, they're all overbought on the daily charts, right? They need to have a correction. So again, we're calling this correction out, but it doesn't seem to be coming just yet. And there's potential reasons for this, right? It's ultimately following Bitcoin in terms of price action, but Bitcoin stopped, right? It stopped at 47k, just up below that 48k area, and it hasn't had a pullback, but it has lost momentum. So what's going on with Bitcoin? When is Bitcoin going to have a correction? And when's Bitcoin going to pull back down? And then obviously shake out some of these retail investors out of these altcoins. And, when we talk about that Bitcoin dominance, all day long, we were expecting Bitcoin to go up towards the 50% of dominance level, right? That 50% level. Now, that hasn't happened yet. Instead, these altcoins started to gain some traction, and the altcoins need to have some form of correction. So I'm anticipating there are going to be some institutions, some traders out there that will be shaking retail investors out. If there's a significant number of you who are using leverage, seriously consider your positions. I'm not a financial advisor, nor is Chris, but leverage is highly risky if you do not know what you're doing. Obviously, being overbought, don't know when we're going to see the correction, but we are going to see the correction. We can see on the weekly chart that VeChain is heading towards the overbought area. The daily is already there. The only thing that is saving VeChain right now is the fact that the hourly is not letting us correct. Okay, we get these small hourly corrections, but then we get more pushes to the upside, right up against this 14.1 cent area right now of resistance, right? We're looking to try to close above it, but we're not getting there. Instead, we're getting pulled back down below the 14.1. Now, trading in these key areas between 13.2 and 14.1, these are some interesting lines for us. We can see that our stochastic has again lowered down, lost that momentum, and we basically have now the opportunity to push up towards that 15.2 cent area. But obviously, we do have to acknowledge that we need to have some good sentiment. And right now, what you're seeing here is good movement in terms of the volume here for VeChain, at least during this growth period. And then you're seeing a decrease in volume right now. But if that volume there does actually increase higher, then that could be problematic. What we want to see is a decrease in volume as we potentially come back down a little bit lower towards these this area here. Actually, probably going to be about 13.7. That seems a very, very sensible area just here for sideways trading, and then potentially push back up, right, heading towards that 15.2 cent. This is what's happening on the hourly, right? We're continuing to see this motion where we're constantly going up and down into the overbought, oversold area, with interesting volumes that go behind it, right? So that market at the moment is very, very greedy, and it's when you see extreme greed that you want to obviously be thinking about taking profits and buying back potentially at a lower stage. Now, I don't personally do this. Instead, all I tend to do is I hodl for the long term, and every time that there is a buying opportunity like this, I dollar cost average a better position ahead of where I know our fifth wave is going. So again, you get these opportunities if you see them that way. What we don't want to do is act emotionally about what is happening here when it comes to VeChain, right? Because we obviously do understand where they are going long-term, where VeChain's long-term vision sits, and obviously the price appreciation with VET that goes along with that. What we don't want to do is basically be selling, once we're down here, and then actually the price goes back up here, and then we basically buy more here because we think it's going to the moon, only for the price then to come back down here. We then sell it, and you're constantly, selling high, buying. Buying high and selling low, right? That's not what you want to do. You want to basically be selling at the high points and buying at the low points and dollar cost averaging better positions. Now, obviously, this is what day traders do. They do this all the time. But if you haven't got time for that, I haven't got time for that. So instead, I just hodl my position, and every time I see a significant portion of VeChain here that is oversold, that to me is indicating a good buying opportunity. So somewhere down here, for example, this would have been a good opportunity to buy this wave, selling at the top here, waiting for the correction to come back down into this oversold area, and then riding it back up again. Now, obviously, this is not sustainable long term. Okay. Oh, this is the hourly chart, right? You can do this on the hourly chart and take a few percentage points here and there, right? But it's important that we acknowledge what is going on with that daily chart. What is going on with that weekly chart? Okay, right now, this is a high point. Do we want to be buying the high point on the daily chart? Not for a long-term position. Okay, so instead, you want to find your support lines. You want to find where your corrections are likely to go, and you want to buy those, and then go up again later. Okay, so obviously if you're focusing in on those smaller time frames, you're able to make those short-term trades, right? They have to be closed within a few hours of each other, right? You don't want to be opening a position, specifically this point in time, that basically runs into multiple days, okay, unless you're aware of what is going on. This actually on the daily chart is indicating a good short-term position, right? So to basically short it if that's something of interest, right? Not saying that that is something that is likely to happen, because we also have to consider what is going on with those bigger views as well. What is that weekly chart looking like? We already know that it's heading to the overbought area, but it's not there yet. So right now we know that we can ride this a little bit higher, but how much higher is it likely to go? And obviously, when we take a look at the current position here on the daily, and we take a look at where we were previously, this was an area of major resistance for us on the daily chart. So this is looking pretty primed to be a good area for a correction, right? We are talking about needing a correction. We know that a correction has to happen at some point, and it could just be a one-day correction on the daily chart. That could be as simple as it needs to be, right? To see that momentum drop out of here. Now, if that happens and you maybe see 1 to 2 day correction in this period of time, that would allow us to basically correct down lower on our RSI of the daily chart. That would then put us in a pretty good position to then go ahead and start thinking about where the next level of resistances are ahead of this major piece of work that VeChain has to do up here as we enter the 618 at 16.9 cent and looking to get that close candle at 21.5. Okay, that weekly close candle up there will be absolutely key for the bull signal to send VeChain to those next levels. So we have to obviously acknowledge what is going on, right? This potential move to the upside that we've seen in the last several days is unsustainable long term. This is very clear when we take a look at these indicators such as the relative strength index or the stochastic relative strength index. Okay, the stochastic is more sensitive to price movements than the relative strength index. Both are very good. One's better for sideways trading than the other, but nonetheless, they both tell you the same picture here. The daily chart needs to be corrected. The hourly chart is showing us some opportunities where we could, for short-term trading, find some opportunities to buy some better positions, right? As we start to see corrections coming in, we can potentially start to see some opportunities to buy and then sell a few hours later at these higher levels, right? If you're into day trading, if you have the time to be watching the charts constantly, or have the time to actually place your buy and sell orders accordingly, okay? But for me, as a long-term investor in VeChain, knowing where the vision of VeChain is and where they are trying to go with their particular project, for me, knowing that we are going to see a series of waves within the fifth wave, knowing that we are heading to overbought on the weekly, knowing that we're already overbought on the daily, and the hourly chart is showing loss of momentum, a correction at some point in the near future is definitely due, and we should be waiting for that low area to come in to dollar cost average a better position and continue our fifth wave to the upside. Again, time is the hardest thing to gauge, but for me personally, it still resonates with me that the end of the year is the end of the bull run, okay? Historically, that has been the case. This year is going to be the same, in my opinion, although we have seen serious traction much earlier than anticipated. With that being said, though, it was August last year that VeChain was going ahead and setting all-time high after all-time high as well. So again, we are looking for the corrections maybe at the end of August as we go into September to start to see this correction come in just for a little bit of period to allow us to correct these indicators and allow us to continue the growth to the upside. Nothing moves in straight lines. We normally see ABC correction waves. That could be something that we are looking for here within this first or second wave of the fifth wave correction to the upside. Guys, that is all I have for VeChain today. If you have found it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. And of course, if you are new, then do go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select on all notifications, and you will not miss another VeChain update. Guys, with all that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.